Hello everybody, welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Players Championship DFS Tactics show. Got a lot to get into, a lot of lineups to make, go over what my mixed condition model looks like in the end. I also posted the 6 players that qualified under the criteria that I mentioned on Monday evening's show. So if you have not seen the 6 players that qualify and you haven't seen the criteria, go give me a follow over at social media, particularly on Twitter. That's where I revealed the players, but the criteria are both on Twitter and Instagram. But I put that out late last night, so we have a lot to get into. I don't want to waste any time. So all statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is simply the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler, a much better DFS player. Go check them out. It's going to be well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media. This is Twitter and Instagram. As I mentioned before, I post research to those places throughout the week. For golf, I will be also posting some baseball stuff when baseball season rolls around. It's not too far away now. So if you want to see a summary of the research that I do every week for the golf tournament, and then when baseball season rolls around, see some baseball research, give me a follow at those places. Twitter is also where I post my betting cards for the week, so I will definitely have that up after the show this evening, a little later on tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, as I am still in the process of finalizing my lineups. But if you want to see my betting cards for each PGA tournament, give me a follow over at Twitter. And then the link to my Twitch channel is also in the description. This is where I do all of my in-depth research, much more laid back, got some music in the background. Also look at baseball research, little gaming. So if you are interested in the in-depth research or the process that I go about doing my research, all of that, or if you just want to see the really gritty numbers, give me a follow over at Twitch. And then finally, we're live, chat's open. Have you made the wagers for the week? Who are your top plays? Who are you pivoting to? Who are you staying away from? All of that good stuff. I want to hear from you all. And of course, if you have any lineup questions, player A versus player B, we're here for all that. So let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2023 Players Championship. And we're going to start over at Windfinder. And you can see the forecast for tomorrow looks pretty fair. No favor for AM or PM, at least as of now. Pretty beautiful day for golf is what it looks like. High of 70. Winds in the 8 to maybe 11, 12 mile an hour range. However, you look at Friday, and we mentioned this a little bit on Monday evening, but the wind completely switches direction. So cardinality wise, you're going east to west, or maybe east northeast to west southwest, and then it flips throughout the day, or throughout the evening and into the day on Friday. And also look at the velocity of such wind. Now in the morning, you still have the same level of sustained winds in 8, 9, 10 mile an hour or so, but the gusts certainly pick up to anywhere between the mid 20s into the upper 20s and maybe low 30s in the afternoon. But the wind looks like it really picks up sustained wise in the afternoon as well. So now Friday is going to be a much more difficult day as it looks than Thursday, that's for sure. But, and again, I can only go by forecast. It looks like the Friday afternoon wave certainly has the worst end of it. So because of that, any tiebreaker scenario or any fence leaning or anything to that effect, I am going to lean towards a Thursday PM, Friday AM player. It is not so detrimental, I think, that you have to completely ignore the Friday afternoon wave. And in fact, a lot of your bigger players are starting tomorrow morning and therefore playing in the afternoon on Friday. But I am going to factor this in a little bit and give a boost and or downgrade, however you wish to phrase it, to the players that are playing Thursday afternoon and Friday morning. So there's the forecast for the Players Championship, or at least Thursday and Friday, and how we are going to try and get 6 of 6 through to the weekend for this first massive DFS slate for the PGA Tour season. So with that, we're going to close out Windfinder. I do not have the leaderboard up. I can bring that up if there are any questions, but I do have the tee times off to my side monitor here if we need to go and look. But because we just came from Windfinder, your top players in moderate and windy conditions since the start of 2022, those players are Justin Thomas, Sung Jae, Will Zalatoris, Tony Finau, Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Keegan Bradley, Xander, Rory, and Matt Fitzpatrick. So there's your top 10 in terms of total wind performance or strokes gained total in the wind. You keep going on down here. Max Homa, Shane Lowry, Chris Kirk, Sam Burns, Aaron Wise, Jordan Spieth, Cameron Young, Tom Hoge, Sahith Theegala, Brian Harman, and Hideki round out your top 21. And then I will scroll down to, looks like the top 35 or so for you in terms of total wind performance since the start of 2022. So make sure you give these players a boost in your rankings, your considerations, and you might not downgrade them too much if they indeed have the Friday afternoon slot or Friday afternoon wave. The other end of the spectrum, give these guys a downgrade in your rankings, in your considerations, and whatnot. Nick Watney, Max McGreevy, Dylan Wu, Ryan Brim, Kevin Tway, Justin Suh, who's been getting a little bit of love from the Fantasy National community. Now, it's only 6 rounds, but he has not played well in the wind. Harris English, Kramer Hickok, Martin Laird, Ches Reavie, Chad Ramey, Chesson Hadley, on down, as you can see in that list. So give these players a slight downgrade or, drop them in your considerations a little bit, especially with the amount of wind that is expected on Friday afternoon and Friday in general. But as I mentioned throughout the week, what I believe is going to be the most important filter throughout the week is Pete Dye performance. And I will tell you now, before I go to my mixed condition model, I actually used more Pete Dye filter than I had planned on doing, but I'll explain why once we get there. But just to quickly review from this week, your top performers on Pete Dye courses since the start of 2021. I went back another year just to make sure everybody has enough rounds to make it statistically significant. Your top performers on Pete Dye designs since the start of 2021 has been Shane Lowry, Corey Connors, Brian Harman, Sung Jae, Patrick Cantley, Will Zalatoris, Jon Rahm, Keegan Bradley, Justin Thomas, and Siwoo Kim. So there's your top 10 in terms of Pete Dye performance. I believe that's probably going to be the most important filter this week. I could also see it playing difficult with the wind and just the sheer amount of trouble on the course. However, the amount of trouble has not changed on this course. I meant to go to the past course conditions, not the breakdown. There is 17 holes with water in play. Now, you are definitely going to have more difficult than easy rounds, but you can see even last year with the gross winds that the players had to deal with, it still played to average. You did have one round that was difficult, but it still played to average. So more likely, the tournament is going to be average in terms of difficulty. And that's why I did not use any difficult to par filters throughout my mixed condition model. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into my mixed condition model. We talked all week that I just feel this is going to be a ball striking course. The short game bar rises just due to the fact that the players that are winning the Players Championship are generally just making a bunch of putts. But it's a Pete Dye course. You are definitely going to have to be precise with your irons and your approach shots. So I have 10% strokes gained off the tee and 15% in strokes gained approach. Again, emphasis on the ball striking, especially with off the tee. The fact that this rough is longer this year, at least per the GCSAA tournament fact sheet, is listed longer than last year. I think off the tee is going to be a little bit more of a factor, especially in terms of accuracy. So I have, and we'll skip to the accuracy part, I did put 10% in good drives gained, and this is one of the filters that I used on Pete Dye, or one of the metrics I used, the Pete Dye filter. Pete Dye is famously known for playing with eye lines, throwing your eyes off of where you need to be. And, a lot of times players are going to have to play towards trouble and all of that on a Pete Dye course. So if a player's either able to hit the fairway or still able to hit the green in regulation, if they miss the fairway is going to be a big part, I believe, this week. So 10% in good drives gained, 10% in greens as well. Again, a heavy emphasis on ball striking this week, and this is particular ball striking on Pete Dye courses. We'll scroll back up a little bit. Opportunities gained, again, on Pete Dye courses, and birdies are better on Pete Dye courses. I have 5% in opportunities, 10% in birdies are better on Pete Dye courses. Instead of using strokes gained total like I did last year, I broke it out. I'm not doing anything with strokes gained total this year, but I broke out these different metrics that I think are going to play most into a Pete Dye design. And I want to see who is able to score or who has scored the best on Pete Dye designs since 2021. So there's 15% in scoring type metrics. The last filter used was long rough, and we looked at this Monday evening knowing that the rough is at least listed an inch longer than in 2022. So 5% in scrambling gained from all of 2022 with long rough. No around the green metrics per se, and that could be a part where I am weak in this data model, but I feel like scrambling is going to be the more important factor than just around the green, especially with the amount of water and such that's in play here at TPC Sawgrass. 5% in 200 plus proximity. The par 5s are where you are going to be able to score on this course, and we saw that it was pretty important relative to other full field courses. So 5% in 200 plus procs. I didn't do anything with total procs. If a different proximity, if total procs matters, or if 200 plus doesn't. If proximity doesn't matter at all, then I'll be weak. But I feel like 200 plus procs is where you should have your focus this week, since the par 5s are your opportunities to score on this course. And then we rounded out simply with par 3s, 4s, and 5s. You'll notice that I did not separate any particular length. I have 5% in par 3s. We saw throughout the week that par 3s were pretty mitigated in importance. I know Cam Smith played them pretty well last year, but overall, they're pretty mitigated in importance here. 15% in par 4s. I didn't feel comfortable singling out any particular range. Even though 350 to 400 looks statistically the most important, there are or at least 450 to 500 has the most number of holes here. So I didn't feel comfortable splitting out a specific range. Instead, I just know par 4s are going to be very important. So 15% in all par 4s, 10% in all par 5s. And again, if you combine that with the 200 plus, I feel like I have 15% in par 5s in a way. So there's a look at my mixed condition model. You'll notice that there's nothing to do with putting. I did not bring in any Bermuda putting since the Bermuda is dormant. Talked about this a lot on Monday. So if you want quite a bit more of a putting look at this, take a look at Monday's show, but no putting. Again, very, very light around the green in terms of just scrambling. I don't have any strokes gained around the green. I am very, very focused on ball striking with an emphasis on driving, as I think because of the listed long rough, I think accuracy is going to be much more of a premium. So 10% off the tee and 10% in good drives gained. So there's a look at the mixed condition model that I finished, or that I have for this week. Let's go ahead and move on over to Microsoft Excel and reveal my rankings. And just as a reminder, this is only taking into account the analytics, the prior course performance, and the percent owned. This is not factoring in their tee time. I do that in my own rankings when I'm making lineups and such. Outside of this, this is just purely by a numbers standpoint in terms of rankings. But with those rankings, my top 10 goes as Jon Rahm, number 1, Keegan Bradley, number 2, Corey Connors, Tony Finau, Victor Hovland, Sungjae, Jason Day, Shane Lowry, Rory McIlroy, and Will Zalatoris are my top 10. And a pretty good heavy emphasis on prior course form. Now, this is specifically just due to, or specifically for performance at TPC Sawgrass, but generally speaking, these players were also very good on Pete Dye courses. Jon Rahm was in the top 10. Shane Lowry was the number 1 strokes gained total on Pete Dye courses. J-Day up there. Corey Connors is up there. Keegan. So a lot of similarities between Pete Dye courses. So I put some extra emphasis into course value this week. So there's a look at my top 10. I don't think there is really too much of a surprise. You absolutely could argue the ordering of such players, but really I don't have too much in way of qualms when my top 10 was sorted out, taking into all of these factors. And you see everyone in the top 10, at least in terms of Fantasy National projected ownership, is all at least 11.5%. I mean, slightly rounding for Sungjae, I'm upping that 0.1%, but 11.5% or more on all of these players that are in my top 10. In fact, all of the players that are in the top 13 are above 11%. So, seems like I am on par thinking with a lot of the members at Fantasy National. But that is a look at my top 10. Let's go through the price board and start figuring out where some of the pivots and perhaps some fades, where we think we can get some value on the price board for the DFS slate this week. So in the 10Ks, you have 4 players. You have Jon Rahm at 11.8, Rory's at 11 even, Scotty Scheffler at 10.6, and Xander at 10 even. None of these 4 are outside of my top 20. However, I think there's a clear top 2 in the 10Ks, and it's the 2 11Ks. Now, Rory is on an alternating pattern. He won, he then missed the cut. He had a top 20, I believe, 2 years ago, and then missed the cut top 20 last year, missed the cut 2 years before, won in 2019, and then missed the cut in 2018. So if the pattern serves, he's going to miss the cut. That's very bold to say, but That's why his course value is actually pretty high. He does have missed cuts here and a win. So he's a little bit of all or nothing. Whereas Jon Rahm's been pretty darn solid at TPC Sawgrass in his 3, I think, tries, maybe 4. But you see the irons for both players, very, very good. Par 4s, Rory's been better off the tee. Rory's scored a little bit better on Pete Dye courses. And then Jon Rahm overtakes Rory for just purely analytics, as Jon Rahm's been number 1 in par 5s. He's been number 1 in proximity, 200 plus. Number 1 in par 3. So a lot to like here with Jon Rahm, but he is very, very expensive. So if you're going into Jon Rahm, you're not using another 9 or maybe not even another 8, or you're dropping into the 6Ks heavily to use Jon Rahm. Rory going to be very, very popular. Everybody knows that he really likes this course. But again, he does have his fair share of missed cuts. Xander is the unique option here, but you see his course value. He's actually missed the cut the past 2 or 3 times here. So his course value is getting hurt quite a bit. The analytics liking, but you look at his performance on these Pete Dye filters. He's 34th. I mean, it's not bad by any means, but it's not elite. 50th in good drives. Now he is top 25 in greens on Pete Dye courses, but nothing that's elite on Pete Dye designs. He has struggled on Pete Dye designs. Hey P, thanks for checking in on this Wednesday evening. Have you made your wagers? What players are you thinking about in terms of DFS? Watching from Scottsdale. Hey, there you go. I knew you were going out to spring training at some point. Glad to hear that you made it safely. Good stuff. I am quite jealous of you in that regard. Would love to take in some Cactus League. I've taken in some Florida spring training, some Grapefruit League, but I have not been able to catch any Cactus League. But thanks again for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate it. We were talking about Xander and how he has struggled at TPC Sawgrass. He is the unique option in the 10Ks. If you're not going to Rahm or Rory, I would go to Xander. 1, because of the price savings, and 2, because of the ownership savings. Scotty Scheffler, I am pretty off of this week. And it's a dangerous game to play, sure. He is number 1 in par 4s. He's top 10 in irons, 2nd off the tee. But I'm going to fade Scotty Scheffler quite a bit. He has not played well here. His performance at Pete Dye courses isn't the best in general. We can see that across here. Now, birdies are better has been really good. But good drives is really, really bad. Greens has been pretty bad in terms of on Pete Dye design specifically. He's also not been very good at 200 plus at all. And again, I think the par 5s are going to be where most of the scoring is done this week. Now he is top 20 in par 5s, but 110th in 200 plus. Something's not adding up there, unless he's just really, really taking advantage of the very long par 4s, which could be, because we don't have any long par 4 metrics specifically in here. But I'm just off of Scotty Scheffler. I don't like Xander, but that sub 10% projected ownership is quite appealing, and the price. So in the 10Ks, I've got Jon Rahm, a fairly clear number 1. Rory is a fairly clear number 2. Xander is a pretty distant 3rd, and I am fading Scotty Scheffler. Just choosing him as one of the players that I'm going to lose to, going off previous course form. And the ownership is pretty darn high. I believe he is the 3rd most projected owned player this week. No, 4th. He's the 4th most projected owned player, at least in terms from Fantasy National. So there's a look at how I see the 10Ks. Moving to the 9s, Max Homa, Patrick Cantley, Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, Tony Finau, Sungjae, and Sungjae. So you have 6 players in the 9Ks. I mean, what's there to say? Max Homa, he's played here. I know that number's not great, but he has played well here most recently. I think it's the past 2 years he's had pretty solid performances. Third in approach, third in par fours, top 10 in birdies or better on Pete Dye courses, second in par threes. I like Max Homa. He's the third most projected owned player. I don't think I'll be able to get away from it. Patrick Cantlay, similar to Xander, he's missed the cut in the past two or three Players Championships. The irons have not been up to Patrick Cantlay standards, so Cantlay is another player I am going to fade, even though he is 13th in my rankings, and a lot of that is coming from the analytics. I'm going to go with the course form on Cantlay and fading. Justin Thomas, what's there to say? He really, really plays well here. He is the second most projected owned player, second or third. It's percentage points. Now, again, the metrics have not been good on him lately. In a lot of these previous tournaments, it worked out for me once, and it didn't work out for me once. But he really likes Sawgrass, a former champion. I won't be able to get away from using Justin Thomas, especially since he's in the mid-nines. A lot of what has helped me choose to fade Justin Thomas has been his price in, say, the upper nines or in the tens. At mid-nines for Justin Thomas seems like a pretty fair or even bargain price. Now, you're not getting a bargain in terms of percent owned or projected ownership. Understand that. But that's chalk I won't be able to get away from, I don't think. Justin Thomas really likes Sawgrass. And if I bring up my other sheet over here, I believe Justin Thomas is on the, quote, better side of the draw. So the premier or featured groups for tomorrow, you have Jon Rahm, Scheffler, and Rory in the morning. You have Justin Rose, Billy Horschel, and Hideki in the morning. You have Sungjae is in the morning. Yeah, so Justin Thomas is in the afternoon tomorrow, which theoretically means he gets the better end of the draw. He doesn't have to deal with the elevated winds on Friday afternoon. So a lot to like there with Justin Thomas. Finau is number one analytically. You see second in irons. It's just off your... Oh, no, it is actually able to be seen second in birdies or better on Pete Dye courses. He has some very, very good Pete Dye performance. The course value, it's not great by any means. I'll be cautious with Tony Finau. Very, very cautious with Finau. Sungjae, the only thing that's limiting him in my mind is the fact that he is in the morning, so he's dealing with the, quote, worst end of the draw. I really like Victor Hovland this week. Oh, sorry. Well, Victor's in the 8K, so there's foreshadowing for you. I keep thinking Victor's 9,000. He's not. So there's a look at the 9Ks for me. I like Homa. I am staying away from Cantlay. A lot of the same reason I'm staying away from Xander. The course form is bad. The same can be said for Colin Morikawa. Morikawa has not played particularly well here either. And both of the analytics seem to be very high on these guys. I'm much more skeptical on these two players and Xander. So in the 9Ks, I'm going to eat the chalk on Homa and JT. Sungjae's fine. I'm a little worried about the afternoon draw or Friday afternoon portion, but Sungjae should be fine. But that'll tell you, especially if I am coming up to Rahm, I'm really not coming into the 9Ks to try and squeeze in as much value as I can to get up to Rahm. Moving to the 8s, Victor Hovland, Will Zalatoris, Jordan Spieth, Matt Fitzpatrick, Cameron Young, Hideki, Terrell Hatton, Shane Lowry, Tom Kim, and Jason Day. And this is where I have been living. If I don't come up to Jon Rahm, I've been living in the 8Ks a lot. There is a lot I like in here. I just mentioned it because I thought he was 9,000, or I keep forgetting that he's not in the 9,000. Victor Hovland. I love Victor Hovland this week. Yes, the course value doesn't look great. He's had a couple of top 25s the past 2 or 3 years here. He is going to be pretty widely owned, I would think. But again, this is the emphasis on ball striking. Really like Victor Hovland this week. Will Zalatoris has played here twice. Average finish inside the top 25. He's got a lot going for him. He's also played Pete Dye designs very, very well. Putting, because there's no putting in this mixed condition model, he might be a little bit higher than what he should be, but I still think Will Zalatoris is going to be very, very good this week. A lot of the members at Fantasy National seem to think so as well. I actually don't mind Jordan Spieth this week either, and at 6.5%, that is very, very unique. Now, he has been pretty darn bad at TPC Sawgrass. I don't know. I just feel like he's been playing a little bit better than these numbers show. So I don't mind Spieth. I'm not rushing to use him, but I don't mind him. I really like Fitzpatrick again this week. He had a chance to win last week. He just did not play well on Saturday at the API. So he played very darn well. I would be surprised if he's at 8.5% ownership. But I am all over Matthew Fitzpatrick this week, especially because as I look again at the tee times, he is teeing off tomorrow afternoon, meaning he has the Friday morning draw. So in the afternoon tomorrow, your premier groups or featured groups looks like it is Fitzpatrick, Hovland, and Lowry. I'll get to Lowry here in a second. Zalatoris, Xander, and I believe it's Kurt Kitayama off of his win at the API. Those three are a feature group. And then Homa, Thomas, and Spieth. Again, another reason why I'm very high on Spieth. He seems to have the better end of the draw. Cameron Young, I was nowhere near him last week. He played okay. Look, he's an elite driver of the golf ball, so I don't think all the water on the course will affect him all that much. But in his short time on the PGA Tour, he's not played Pete Dye designs well. And you can see his course value, it was really bad last year. Now, I'm willing to write off last year just because it was so unique in the sense that there was a very clear good half of the draw and a very clear bad half. And he was in the bad half. I mean, I'm willing to write that off, but he's also not been great on Pete Dye designs in general, especially in the ball striking category. So Cameron Young is somebody that I don't want to say it's a full fade, but I will only use him if I feel like I have to, or if I've used too much Fitzpatrick, if I've used too much Hovland or Zalatoris. I might sneak a Cameron Young in a lineup or two, but I'm not thrilled to go there. I am nowhere near Hideki this week. A lot of people are really liking Tyrrell Hatton, and this is my bold call, if you will, for the week. Tyrrell Hatton is a full fade for me. I am going nowhere near Tyrrell Hatton. He is 1 for 4 in making the cut in his past 4 tries here at TPC Sawgrass. He's missed the cut 3 out of the last 4 times. The irons are okay, but they're not stellar. He's been fine off the tee. He is 6th in birdies or better on Pete Dye courses. But in terms of ball striking, and again, that's where my emphasis has been this week, just like Cameron Young, and Tyrrell Hatton has a lot more sample size than Cameron Young does. Tyrrell Hatton's been awful in ball striking on Pete Dye designs, even on opportunities. Cameron Young's at least looks like he's presented himself with opportunities in a smaller sample size. Hatton's been pretty middling, even in just giving himself opportunities. Damn it, that's right off your screen. He's been pretty middling in terms of giving himself opportunities on Pete Dye designs. And then look at the ball striking numbers on Pete Dye designs. I want no part of Tyrrell Hatton. I will lose if Tyrrell Hatton plays well. But that is one player that I am going nowhere near. Him and Xander are probably the 2 that I will say that if they play well, I'll lose. Instead, I've been coming to Shane Lowry. And we saw this at the beginning of the show. Number 1 in strokes gained total on Pete Dye designs since the start of 2021. I do not understand why he is essentially the same projected ownership. I know it's a little bit higher, but rounding and all that stuff. Number 2 in birdies or better on Pete Dye Designs. He's also been very good off the tee just in general this PGA Tour season. Par 4 performance is shaky at best, granted, but look at these numbers on Pete Dye Designs. You see the second, and Terrell Hatton was 6th, but the next 2, Terrell Hatton's in the deep red. Shane Lowry's top 10 in both. Good drives gained and greens on Pete Dye Designs. And he's also very good at been giving himself opportunities on Pete Dye Designs. And there's the 17th, top 20 in opportunities. He's also 6th in scrambling and long rough. A lot to like here with Shane Lowry. Shane Lowry is the player that if he does not play well, I will lose, because I am all in on Shane Lowry in terms of DFS. Tom Kim, I think he'll be fine. I am very, very wary of first-time starters at TPC Sawgrass. It's not that they can't play well. Some of them do. But generally speaking, the more you've played Sawgrass, the better you get at it, just due to course knowledge. And you could argue that for any course, but Pete Dye Designs are so important for that factor. The more you play a Pete Dye design, the more you understand where you can and can't miss, especially with eye lines. That's what he loves to do. So I am very, very wary of any first-time starter. So 12.5% on Tom Kim. While I understand the reasoning behind it, very good in the irons. Strokes gained par 4. He's 5th in par 3s. His Prox 200 plus is in the top 15. I am very wary, so I will be very cautious with Tom Kim. Jason Day is your projected number 1 owned player for a very good reason. Former champion here. He's got some of the best course history. I think Keegan's probably the best. Jason Day is very, very close for second. You're just going to be eating a lot of chalk. That's the issue with Jason Day, but being the cheapest in the 8Ks, number 2 in par 4s, 10th in off the tee, 25th with the irons. And while he is not as adept at going low on these Pete Dye designs, you see that he is a former champion. I think it's going to be more difficult than easy, obviously. And the more difficult it gets, I think the better Jason Day will be this week. So I really, really like Jason Day for DFS this week. And that is some more chalk I will eat. So Day and Lowry and probably Fitzpatrick. I'll be very, very committed or overexposed to Shane Lowry. Probably will be more overexposed to Matt Fitzpatrick, especially if this projected ownership stays this way. So if those two don't play well, I will not do well this week. But there's a look at the 8Ks for me. Hovland, I love. I'm going to use him. Can't get away from that chalk. I love Zalatoris. They're also both on the good side of the draw. Spieth and Fitzpatrick are on the good side of the draw. I'm not excited to go with Spieth, but I really don't mind it this week. I've been more going to Fitzpatrick. I really don't hate Spieth, though, if you want to throw him in a lineup and think that he's going to be unique. I want no part of Cameron Young. I don't want any part of Terrell Hatton. I don't like Cameron Young, although I can maybe see him throwing him once or twice. Hideki, no. Tom Kim, I'm very wary because of the first-time start. And I love Jason Day, but it is very, very chalky. All right, let's move to the upper sevens. Chris Kirk should be fine. He's also played very, very well here. Going to be pretty darn chalky, but again, ball striking has been very, very good. Now, off the tee hasn't been the greatest. He's made up for it with the irons, but his Pete Dye performance is pretty darn spectacular. 26th in birdies or better on Pete Dye designs. Top 10 in good drives gained. Top 20 in greens on Pete Dye designs the past 2+ years. And then you see the opportunities are top 15. He just plays Pete Dye designs very, very well. No exception here at Sawgrass. Tommy Fleetwood, I'm a little surprised he's only at 10%. I really, really like Tommy Fleetwood. Again, with this prior course performance. Now, the analytics aren't as high on him, but he's played Sawgrass pretty darn well, and if it gets windy, he's generally decent in the wind. So, I don't know. 10% seems pretty low on Fleetwood. I want no part of Maverick McNeely. He's coming off injury. I just want to see some health. If you are not afraid of the injury or the layoff, fire up Maverick McNeely. He's only at 1%, but I want to see some health, so no thank you on Maverick McNeely. Sam Burns is quite interesting. These are technically Bermuda, even though they are overseeded with Poa Trivialis. They are technically Bermuda. He is the number 1 strokes gained putter at the 4 comparison course greens, if you will. Remember, I talked about this on Monday. All the credit goes to Gabe, and I ended up putting his Twitter I pinned a comment with his Twitter. Go support Gabe. Subscribe to his letter. It's very, very good. But he had the 4 courses that match TPC Sawgrass in terms of dormant Bermuda overseeded with POA. At the time of being played, it was the Valero, the Valspar, the Waste Management, and the American Express. Sam Burns is the number 1 strokes gained putter on those 4 courses when you combine them. So he's kind of interesting in that regard. Now, the irons have been total shit. Take that. You can't ignore that. He's been really bad on par 5s. His 200 plus has been really, really bad. So he's got a lot of red flags. He is the number 1 putter, so if you're going to value putting, take a long look at Sam Burns. Justin Rose has played very, very well here. I don't know why he's only sitting at 5%. He's played very, very well here. And he plays Pete Dye designs very well. You see the 22nd. You see a slight green here. This is 17th in the good drives gained. And then 15th in greens on Pete Dye designs the past 2 years. So I guess members at Fantasy National are a little concerned that the ball striking is a little bit subpar. I'm not. I would fire up some Justin Rose, absolutely. Even though I do believe he is on the bad end of the draw. Let me see here. Justin Rose. He has a later morning tee time. So that means he'll probably go out earlier-ish in the afternoon on Friday, but he's still in the afternoon. Not the best, but he has at least played well here. Siwoo's really good. You're gonna pay a little bit of chalk for him, but man, I like Siwoo quite a bit this week. 4th and birdies are better on Pete Dye courses. He generally plays Pete Dye designs very well. Now the par 5s are bad. He's 122nd, but I like Siwoo. I don't want any part of Sahith Theegala. There's too much trouble off the tee for him. And then I really, really, really like Keegan, and everybody does. He's the 2nd most projected on. It's been waffling between him and JT, percentage points wise, rounding and all that stuff. Yeah, so in the upper 7s, Kirk's going to be fine. Fleetwood, I just don't see any reason why not to fire Tommy Fleetwood up, especially with the course form. I would stay away from Mav McNeely. I'm personally going to stay away from Sam Burns. If you want the putting angle, take a look at Sam Burns. I don't know why Justin Rose is only at 5%, and I'll definitely use the chalk in here with Siwoo and Keegan. Moving into the low 7s, Corey Connors, somebody that you really need to pay attention about. He's played exceptional here at Sawgrass. Harmon shouldn't be too bad either. He's been top. I think he was top 10 in terms of strokes gained total in terms of Pete Dye designs. So take a look at Brian Harmon. I don't hate that. Elsewhere here, the same goes with that it did for Tom Kim. Any first-time starter I'm going to be very, very wary about. So Taylor Montgomery, the talent's there. Still concerned. Ben Griffin, Thomas Detry, Alex Smalley. I like all three of these players. I do not like the fact that they are first-time starters, so I'm going to tread very, very carefully with them. So elsewhere in the sevens, again, I mentioned Corey Connors. I love. He's going to be pretty chalky, but I think it's going to be a good play. I don't hate Brian Harman. The more difficult you think this is going to get this week, again, take a long look at Keith Mitchell. He's played very well lately. He's the number one off the tee player so far this PGA Tour season. The irons haven't been great, sure, but again, this is just kind of a gut feeling. The more difficult you think it's going to be, the more you need to consider Keith Mitchell. Let's see. I don't mind KH Lee at all either. I don't know. This is kind of another one of those gut feelings. KH Lee is probably going to be okay this week, I would think. So there's a look at what I have for you in the low sevens. In terms of the sixes, I'm trying not to go there this week. I'm just not. A lot of these players are either first-time starters or they have played once or twice and it's been very, very bad. With the exception of maybe Johnny Vegas. He's been okay here at Sawgrass, but you see he's close to 10% owned. That's a little high, or pretty high for 6Ks. Joel Damon has some decent success around here, but he's pretty bad in the wind. He's also not been very good in long rough. His par 3 performance has been pretty bad this PGA Tour season, so I'm a little gun shy on Joel Damon, but you'll be pretty unique if you go to Joel Damon. You want to look at some prior course form. Let's see. The one player that might be pretty interesting, that might be a first-time starter, I'm kind of leaning towards S.H. Kim. Again, the irons haven't been good, but he's just the par 4s. He's been fantastic. He's 27th off the tee, and I think accuracy is going to be more important than distance this week, and he's much more accuracy-focused. He's not a distance player. He's an accuracy player. He's also top 40 in birdies or better on Pete Dye courses. Again, it's only a couple of tournaments, so a very small sample size, but he's shown that he can play them. Greens is fine on Pete Dye courses. So take a look at S.H. Kim if you are coming down into the 6Ks. Again, I'm trying to avoid the 6Ks like the plague, but I don't hate S.H. Kim. A lot of your fellow contestants are probably going to gravitate toward Justin Suh. Okay, I guess. Now that I see his name, Lonto Griffin has withdrawn. So I will make sure I mark this for you. Lonto Griffin has withdrawn. So I will edit this for you. Yeah, there's just not a lot in the 6Ks. Davis Riley's getting some love at 6,500. Probably a lot to do with the irons. It's just that's a lot of ownership for a 6K that I can take or leave. So that's what I have really for you in the 6Ks. I'm just trying to avoid it. I'm trying to get my uniqueness down here in the low sevens with a KH Lee, with a Harmon, who I don't mind going to. Detry, I think, is fine. I would honestly prefer probably Thomas Detry over Ben Griffin because of the ownership. But I'm just wary on all three of these players, even though I like them because of the having never played here. But yeah, that's what I have for you in the 6Ks. Joel Damon for the prior course performance, and then S.H. Kim is speculative. That's really about it. All right, let's go and look at some tiers contests, and then we'll start making some classic lineups. So, in tiers contests, in tier 1, you have Jon Rahm, Rory, and Scotty Scheffler. For me, I think it's a pretty clear Jon Rahm. I do not blame you if you take Rory. I want no part of Scotty Scheffler specifically in tiers. So I'm going to go Rahm. Rory, I guess, would be fine, but give me Rahm in Tier 1. Tier 2, Xander, Max Homa, Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa, and Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas is going to be the chalky play. He's probably going to be the best play. So I will go Justin Thomas. The only other play that I would think about is Max Homa, and they are sitting relatively at the same ownership, at least in terms of classic. So I would guess JT is slightly more chalky in tiers. So I'll go with Justin Thomas. If you think Max Homa is going to be considerably more unique than Justin Thomas, then go Max Homa. But I'm going to start Ron Thomas in my tiers contests if I were to play them. Tier 3, Tony Finau, Sungjae, Victor Hovland, Will Zalatoris, and Jordan Spieth. Well, Sungjae's got the bad end of the draw, but he's probably the most stable. To me, I'm going to go between one of these two. I'm probably going to go Will Zalatoris based on the fact that he has played here twice and played both times really well. Victor Hovland probably has the higher upside. I think Victor has a pretty good chance to win this week. That might be a little bit of foreshadowing on my betting card, but I think it's between one of these two. I'll go Will Zalatoris. I really like Hovland as well. Finau, I guess, could be interesting, and if you're not scared of the tee time, Sungjae is okay, I suppose, but I would much rather get the better end of the draw with one of these two or Tony Finau. But give me Zalatoris in Tier 3. Tier 4, Matt Fitzpatrick, Cameron Young, Hideki, Terrell Hatton, Shane Lowry, Tom Kim, and Jason Day. If you're going to go with course form, go Jason Day. For me, I'm going to go Shane Lowry. Matt Fitzpatrick's also a very, very good play. Give me Shane Lowry in Tier 4. I really like Matt Fitzpatrick this week as well. And Jason Day's a very solid play. He's just very chalky. So because I think Justin Thomas is going to be chalky, and I know Victor/Will be chalky, I'm going to choose to take what is being perceived as a little bit of uniqueness in Shane Lowry. If you can afford to take the chalk, take Jason Day. It's a good play. Tier 5, Chris Kirk, Tommy Fleetwood, Matt McNeely, Sam Burns, Justin Rose, Adam Scott, and Sahith Theegala. Well, no thanks on Sahith Theegala. Way too much trouble on this course. No thanks on Matt McNeely. Kirk will be fine. Probably chalky. Tommy Fleetwood's good. Burns, that's a whole lot of pressure to put on one aspect of his game, which is the putt. If you think you can afford to take the risk, take Justin Rose. I'm probably going to go with Tommy Fleetwood. But if you are indeed taking Justin Rose, you're going to have a lot of uniqueness there. So it's pretty tempting. But I'll go Tommy Fleetwood, knowing that he has played very well consistently year over year here. I also don't hate Chris Kirk. I just think he's going to be very, very chalky. Tier 6, we have Ben Griffin, Thomas Detry, Lucas Herbert, Cam Davis, Harris English, JJ Spawn, and Christian Bezuidenhout. For me, it's between two players. It's between Detry and Griffin. I'll take Detry for a lot of the same reasons that I said I would take Detry in terms of Classic. It's just based on the projected ownership. I'm still a little wary because both of them are first-time starters, but if you look, none of these players really have good course history here. There's Lucas Herbert and his course history, not good. Cam Davis has been really bad here. The best one of these has been Bezuidenhout, but he's like Theegala. There's just too much trouble here for me to like Christian Bezuidenhout. So give me Detry in Tier 6. Ben Griffin would be fine. I imagine he'll be chalky, just like the conundrum with Chris Kirk in Tier 5. There's a look at your tiers, contests, and how I would build my lineups for tiers. Let's start making some classic lineups and see how our fellow contestants are building theirs and how we can work around them. The first question you got to ask yourself is, are your fellow contestants going into the 10Ks? If they are, I would use Max Homa. I mean, granted, he's 9,900, but I'm considering him a 10K in this thought exercise. If they're not, then it's clearly starting at Justin Thomas. They'll probably go Victor as well. Move on down to Jason. Actually, no, they can probably fit a little bit more than that in here. Terrell Hatton, Jason Day, and they still have 7,700 per. You've got Siwoo, who's getting some love at 76, and then 7,800. McNeely is only at 1%. Let's see. You've got Keegan at 75. If we drop to Keegan and we go Siwoo, you're leaving $300 on the table there, but it's approaching a 15.5% projected ownership. That is quite high. They could move up a little bit on some of these guys, probably. But that is pretty darn chalky, the way our fellow contestants are building this kind of lineup. If they are coming into the 10Ks, I'll just use Max Homa. He is the most projected owned. Scotty Scheffler's also getting some love. Max Homa, and I don't see a way that they can do it very easily without going into the 6Ks. They might be able to if they bottomed out at Ben Griffin. So I'll try, but more than likely, this is going to turn into Johnny Vegas. But they are probably going something to the effect of Max Homa, and then I'll throw Zalatoris into this one. 8,000 per. Let's do a Shane Lowry. 8,000 is Jason Day. And then 8,000 again. You've got Chris Kirk, Tommy Fleetwood. Corey Connors is also getting some love as well. Yeah, okay, maybe they don't have to go into the 6Ks, because 77 is Siwoo at 76. There's another lineup right at 15%. Little bit of a different look. Yes, they're not going quite all the way into the 10Ks, but I'm just going to round it by 100. I've been considering Max Homa at 10K in my thought process, or in my shell lineups that I've been theorizing. Let's see. We can try to do perhaps one other. Let's see if they can go Scotty Scheffler. This one I'll definitely have to go to Ben Griffin. If they try to do like a more Starsy Scrubsy type, you got Scheffler, JT, then probably Jason Day, and then you're coming down. Yeah, exactly what's going on there. Corey Connors and Keegan. That's another 15.2, approaching 15.5. So there's another look at a more top end type lineup and taking the speculation on Ben Griffin. So if we're going to maneuver around these style of lineups, and again, he is not by any means unique, but I'm going John Rahm. I am. I'm just going John Rahm. Rory could be fine. I think he's going to be more owned than 14.5%. And again, I just don't want any part of Xander. He's not played well here recently, but if you're not scared off by that, you're going to gain a lot of uniqueness with Xander. I'm just not. I'm not there. So I've been going Rahm, and then I've been hanging out in the 8Ks. Like I've mentioned, I really like Matthew Fitzpatrick. This can also be Shane Lowry. Jason Day is quite chalky. You'd be saving some money, but I've been hovering in that 8K range for my second. And then as much as I like Keegan, he's probably a little bit too chalky. I've been going Justin Rose. I don't see anything wrong with Justin Rose. And then I've been filling out the rest of this lineup with a set of maybe one mid 5 or one mid 7 and a couple of lower 7s, or 3 lower 7s. So Justin Rose at 77. We didn't talk about Ricky. I don't know. Like, he's played very, very well recently. I've been very successful using him when others have still been slow on the bandwagon. I don't see a great performance from Ricky this week. But at 10.5%, I think that's fair in terms of ownership. With the level of uniqueness I have in Fitzpatrick and Rose, I can afford to take a little bit of chalk. So I'm going to take Keegan here. And I've got 72 per. KH Lee, I think, is going to be a worthwhile speculation. Actually, Matt Kuchar's played this event okay. Should be fine. Now, Taylor Pendrith, for as good as his course value is, he's only played here once. It was 13th. He did T13, but it's only one. Nick Taylor is also 3 for 3 here in the past 5 years at TPC Sawgrass. The analytics aren't nearly as high on Nick Taylor, but that's also somebody you can perhaps take a little bit of speculation on. I'm going to throw in KH Lee, and I'll use Thomas Detry. If I am going and using a player that hasn't played here before, I've been trying to go to Detry. I don't mind Ben Griffin, but I've been going more Detry. Smalley is probably pretty fine too, especially with the factor that I think greens in regulation are going to be a big thing, and he hits greens in regulation. So there's a look at a lineup kind of shell that I've been playing around with. You see it's not even just sub 10, it's sub 9%. And I've got all the confidence in the world that Rahm or Fitzpatrick can go and win this. Justin Rose has played well here. Keegan Bradley has played very well here. And I'm taking two players that are speculative, but they're very, very littly owned. Another shell of a lineup that I've been doing, I've been almost ignoring the 10s and the 9s. Almost. I've been doing, some crazy things like Justin Thomas, Victor, Will, and Lowry. Something along these lines. Just really, really, really balancing it out. You don't even have to come up to Thomas. Like, these are 4 pretty chalky players in a vacuum by themselves. I'm hoping that the combination of the 4 would produce some uniqueness. In this lineup, if you really want to get unique, you can throw in an S.H. Kim, whereas if your contestants are building this kind of lineup, I imagine they're probably bottoming out at like a Corey Connors or a Keegan. I imagine you could probably sneak in like an S.H. Kim or a Joel Damon, who I don't mind this week. And that'll really create a lot of uniqueness. And you have 8,000 still for Jason Day. And again, this is saying 13% projected ownership. You've got a lot of chalk in these 5. You're probably going to be unique by using S.H. Kim, but you can even drop off of some of these higher owned players. Say if you want to go to a Tommy Fleetwood here, that's dropping it by more than a full percentage point. You can, let's see, if you go off Zalatoris, maybe you go Fitzpatrick or Jordan Spieth, who I don't hate either. That's dropping in another full percentage point. So there are ways to create your uniqueness this week. So that is what I have for you in terms of the lineup shells and constructions that I've been playing around with. And of course, weather permitting, Friday night there will be the Friday night chill stream where we will do round 3, round 4, and weekend golf showdown for the players. Again, weather permitting. Last week, a line of storms came through and knocked off my power for more than 24 hours. But, weather permitting, I will be here Friday night to do all of that. I have a few win wagers. Of course, everybody knows, or everybody that has followed me for a long while knows my FOMO. So I've got a win ticket on Aaron Wise. I always will. I've gone a lot of parlays this week. I've gone a lot of placement parlays, top 10s, top 20s, and whatnot. So that's what I have for the DFS Tactics show, or that'll do it for the DFS Tactics show tonight. For the Players Championship, thank you, P, for jumping in chat. Really appreciate it. Enjoy your time in Arizona. I am quite jealous of you being able to catch some Cactus League spring training. Let me know how that goes. And let me know how it goes for everyone out there this weekend with your lineups. If you are a winner, please let me know. Comments of this video or social media. I want to be able to shout out winners of the community every week, especially on Sundays right after a big win. So let me know how it goes. Good luck to everyone out there with your wagers and contests. And thanks for supporting the channel. Always appreciate it. Love what I do. And thanks for taking some time out of your week to listen to me ramble on golf statistics. So for all of the wagers that you've made this week for the Players Championship, for all the DFS contests you've entered this week for the Players Championship, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.